In Diepenbeek, a small village in Belgium, for hook rock with Mr. Bai Kamara JR. There is a senior, I think, or
there is a senior, but he's not a musician, so
no, let's forget it.
let's forget about that. You know.
When I start with the beginning, you were born in Bowtown, Sierra Leone.
Absolutely.
You went to England, studying in England in school. Yes, 90s, I think it was.
80s. I started in the 80s.
80s, okay.
Yeah, I went there as a boy.
Yeah.
So as an early teenager, young teenager. Yeah.
And then you went because of your mom to Brussels.
To Brussels, absolutely.
Yeah.
She was an ambassador.
Yeah. When did you knew that you wanted to be a musician? Because you were studying
business and finance, and I didn't know that I wanted to be a musician. I just loved music, and I, you know, and my friends were in bands, but I was never in a band. I was more of a songwriter, and but when I moved to
songwriting for other
people, for other people, you know. But when I moved to Brussels, I met some Belgian musicians in Brussels, and I started to work with them. But then I was still in college, and then I started to work with a singer, writing melodies and some, you know, and then I would sing the melodies, and then they'll tell me, well, hey, listen, you got a nice voice, why wouldn't you sing yourself? And slowly.
And you were already playing guitar?
Yes, I was already playing guitar. But the guitar was never. I never ended up trying to be a guitarist because there were so many great guitar players.
Yeah.
I just wanted to. I was more focused on songs, you know, finding the harmonies,
the
and
lyrics.
Chords. Yes, well, the music, the melody as well, everything that has to do with the song, which is the chord progression, the harmonies, the you know, that was my thing.
What do you want to sing? Do you have special items or?
Oh yes, well, it depends who I'm working for. It depends if I was writing for a particular singer, I always wanted to know what the singer wanted to talk about, then I'll write that with him. But myself, when I write for myself, I always write about socially engaged music, you know, talk about the political issues, but also writing about everyday life as well.
Is that because of what you saw in your life, or what? Because of your, like you said, your mom?
Absolutely. I think in my DNA, because I come from a family that is very involved politically. From my father's side, they were politicians. From my mother's side, they were diplomats. And before my mother was an ambassador, she worked for the United Nations Human Rights Commission, you know. So she had worked in places like Chile. She had worked in places like Uganda. She had worked in places like the Philippines. So as a young kid,
she told you a lot about what was going wrong.
Yes. So I mean, at the dining table, you know, as a younger kid, you know, when other kids were talking about other stuff, my mom would talk about what was happening in the world, because she would go to those places. You know, she would go every 3 months, 4 months. She go.
Saw it.
Yeah, she saw it, and then she would come and would say, "Where are you going?" And we had a map, and we look and say, "Okay, boys, kids, I'm gonna be in that country."
You were the only kid at home, no?
I have two. With two. I have a sister, and then she adopted two other kids. So it was in our DNA as a young teenager that we were very aware.
But you were interested in the
items. Yes, I mean, we were interested because I mean, you had to be interested. I mean, you had to be interested because we also came from a country which was not stable. But I must say, back then we were stable. You know, I'm talking early 80s, late 70s. Sierra Leone was a paradise to live in, even though the political situation was not as bad as it was back then. Later on, but it was pretty stable, you know. And other countries around us were not stable.
The problem was the man in charge, or the whole system, or
what's the system? It's endemic.
Corruption, or no?
Yeah, we have corruption, but you know, as I get older, there is corruption everywhere. That's what I see. And for me, what I see in Africa, well, I don't want to speak, because Africa is a big continent. There's so many different cultures in Africa. What I see in my country and in West Africa, we have to introduce a culture of transparency. Because there's always going to be corruption, but when you have a culture of transparency, that sort of deters people from being corrupt or over corrupt, to say. They'll say, okay, people are going to, because this lack of education, people don't even know what their rights are. People don't even know that a minister or a government person is supposed to serve you. You're not supposed to serve them. You see, so you know what I'm saying? So
I understand, but you're right. When you're not used that they do that, it seems to be normal.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, now you're living in Brussels.
Yes.
So you're a musician.
A musician, yeah.
Full time.
Full time.
Who are the influences? Who are you influenced by?
Oh, my influences. You know, I mean, I've been very fortunate. That even when I was in Africa, my uncles they let me listen to a lot of different kind of music. You know, I mean,
you were introduced in
all kinds of music. I was introduced to Marvin Gaye as a young kid, even to Elvis Presley, even to the Eagles, and because in Sierra Leone we have a strong connection with the UK.
Yeah.
So I think every week or so we will get what is called Top of the Pops, but we'll get the older version, you know, like 1 week later. So we knew all of this kind of music. But when I came to school in the UK, then things changed in a lot of sense. Then I started listening to music which we didn't have on Top of Pops then. Then I got to listen to people like Lou Reed, people like ZZ Top, people, you know. So I got to listen to other stuff which was not mainstream. And because imagine that this 15-year-old kid or this young teenager comes to UK and you go to school and then your friends are like, well, because I went to international school, so they had people from Ireland, people from everywhere in the world, you know. And and I also had English friends as well. And of course they would listen to all this music, which was not really African music, but although the roots of, you know. And so I got opened up to a lot of different kind of music. So I mean, in fact, as a songwriter, you know, my influence is very British.
Yeah.
You know, very British.
But your own music, how would you describe it yourself? A mix from styles, or
it's a mix. My own music, you know. My own music, I would say it's blues, jazz, and soul.
When I interrupt you, you were in Duvel, a bit special. When you look at the other bands, Bai Kamara came. Oh.
Well, I think.
Who's that man?
Well, like, you know, thanks for saying that. Well, I think, you know, as I grew older, I love the blues. I mean, believe it or not, the first blues band that I listened to, the first real blues band I listened to was ZZ Top.
It's a blues band.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the early blues.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're right.
Yeah. You know, I'm not talking about Sharp-Dressed Man. I'm not talking about all that. I'm not talking about all that stuff in the early '80s when they had all the big hits with Eliminator and that stuff. I'm talking about the album Tosh, Le Trois Hombres. I'm talking about. I mean, that was blues.
Yeah, that was blues. Yeah.
That was blues. I mean, that was the first blues. Then I started to listen. Then I said, wow, this is great music. Then of course I started listening to like B.B. King. Then of course I fell in love with John Lee Hooker. Then of course, as I got older, I said, well, I started getting the history of the blues. And I said, well, you know, the blues is where I am from West Africa. Then I started going into Malian blues, people like Alifa Katoure. And I said, well, why should I make the blues like the Americans make? I feel so privileged because as much as I am an African, is as much as I am a European. So I said, well, why won't I just bring this two worlds together without even trying to be contrived?
The link with Africa will always be there.
Will always be there, you know. And so that's why I said, well, with my songwriting background, which is like very English, and then bringing my African thing in and putting it together, and that's my baggage now. That's my baggage.
You're saying songwriting. Is that a difficult job for you, or no? Is it an easy job, or
songwriting? Wait, yeah, I'll tell you something.
When do you do the process?
Well, let me tell you something. Music, in my humble opinion, music is easy. The way you speak is music. The way you walk is music. The way it's music. But writing a song, that's something else. You can make music. Anybody can make music. But how will you make that music into a story and tell people? And this is where the trick comes. And and I've been very lucky that that's because as a songwriter, I've been very lucky because I listen to a lot of people, because that's where you get your stories.
What do your parents say about your songs, about your songwriting?
Yeah, well, sometimes.
Are they critical? Or
Yes,
yeah?
I mean, for example, I wrote a new song, which I think I'm going to play today. Actually, which we're playing. And we have a saying in English in Africa, where the Africans, we always have proverbs, and we have sayings like, "Oh, if I'm not telling the truth, let lightning strike me dead." And I think, and I said, well, lightning, and when you think of Lightning Hopkins, and you think of, and you think of that, that's a strong thing, So then I had this title. I said, well, I love that title. And then I had the title. And then one day, I had this piece of music, and I said, well, that's the title of that. That's that song, So songs come in so many different ways. I mean, I was in Spain during the pandemic, which song was going to be in the new album. It's called I Don't Roll With Snakes. And my kids were playing with some other kids. And they were walking like a crab. Because I'm an observer. As a songwriter, you have to really...
You have to use your eyes.
You have to use your eyes, and you have to open your ears. And then I saw all these little elements, and I wrote a song in 5 minutes. A song came down called I Don't Roll With Snakes.
And do you know at that moment that's a good song?
Yeah, you know.
So.
Yes.
They think you feel that.
Well, I think the best songs are the ones that come directly. The music and the words, everything together.
And they stay like that, the verse, and you don't have to change.
You don't have to change. Maybe you do a little bit of tweak here and there, But I think that's, and I think with the blues as well, especially when you go with the blues, I think you have to really try to listen to what people are saying or what people are talking about, and then write stories about that. Because for me, that's really important.
Your last, not your latest, but your last album got the name Salome. What is the meaning? Because
Salome means Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone. That's
so in the local language. We call it
the local language. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think that there is a great difference between your latest album and your first albums? Is there a kind of evolution?
Yes, there's an evolution. I think. Well, I think what the evolution is full circle. I think I started as I started as a pop singer songwriter, then going to blues, jazz, soul, then into soul, jazz kind of stuff. But the blues has always been there. But I think I was not comfortable with the blues, with wearing a blues jacket and saying I'm a blues man because of blues has no age. Anybody can play the blues, whatever age. But I think for me, I just had to wait till I had a certain maturity to say, okay, now I'm a blues man. So I had to wait till I was over 50 to say, yeah, I'm a blues man now.
I have some questions to finish.
Yeah.
I think everyone has what they call the bucket list. Items that you once want to do in your life. You have also some open items that you say, I once want to do
musically or just in general life?
Generally.
Yeah, I think yes. I would love to. I think something which is achievable. I would love to open a renewable energy company, in Sierra Leone because I think there's a lot of potential there. We got a lot of sun, we got the sea, and we have problems of electricity and problems of energy. And where the solution is there,
you feel a bit responsible to help the people there.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. For me, that's one of my main. The music is there. Music is always going to be there. But I think I would love. That's one of my things in my bucket list that I would love to do.
Great.
Parallel with music.
What are you doing outside of music? Do you have what we call hobbies or things that you do in your free time?
I do a lot of sports. Yes, I do a lot of sports. That's important for me because sports, I think, helps the mind.
Opens the mind,
helps the mind. Yeah. And also the job that I do, as you said, we're very physical on stage. There's a lot of energy going there. If you don't if you don't jog or run or get yourself prepared, you cannot give that kind of energy, you know. I had some really good friends who were not totally fit and have died off stage. You know, they came off stage and had a heart attack. You know, I mean, you know, and I'm going to say that on camera. You know,
as far as I can see, you're not.
No, but I'm, you know, no, I do know, but it's, you know, somebody might look slim, but you might not be fit.
But you can be stressful.
Yes.
A lot of.
Yes, you know, so for me, sports is very important because it really. Also, when I do sports as well, I forget about everything else.
Great.
Yeah.
Mr. Bai Kamara, a last question. How do you see the future? When you look around you, there's a war going on. All things are going to be very expensive, and the people are not, I think, not very lucky at this moment.
Okay, let me do something. I'm a very optimistic person, but at the same time, I'm a realist. And I think Europe has been through worse. We will come out of this better, but also, you know, I'm going to be very diplomatic here and say this. But you know, I'm not a politician. I'm not a diplomat, so I'm going to say what I want to say. And I think Europe has been very soft on Putin. You know, I mean, it's time for Europe to have some spine to say, listen, you know, I mean, we can't take this stuff anymore. I mean, because he's really disrupting our way of life.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's time for Europe to have a spine to say,
Not
listen.
only, like you say, not only one country, but
you know,
the whole
of, you know, but I think we will come out of it better. I think we will come out of it better, and I think as time goes on, and because it's nothing to do with the Russians. It's to do with just this man called Putin. You know. You know, Europe doesn't have a problem with the people of Russia. It's the regime in Russia. It's this man in Russia who has this vision of expanding, of containing this whole ideology of the Russian Empire. I mean, of the Soviet Union. And that's done. That's done. We're in a new world now. And you know, he did this stuff, wanted to contain the European security apparatus, and he did the opposite. Now you've got Norway, you know, you've got Sweden, and Finland joining NATO now. And Finland is just on the border, the longest border of Russia. So he made a miscalculation. And of course, we are suffering, but we are gonna, I mean...
We get a better Europe.
Yes.
Closer Europe.
Yes.
Better Europe.
A better Europe. So, you know, sometimes you have to go through suffering for you to arrive to certain. So this is a test for us. I mean, we've been through this. Europe has been through this before. The Second World War was there. People suffered, and Europe. You know, we had other institutions that came out of that made Europe stronger. And this is another test that we're having now. And I think it's a difficult test because of fuel, because what the war has aggravated. But I think Europe is strong enough. We will come out of it. The whole world will come out of it stronger, but Europe has to have a stronger spine against this man Putin. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Mr. Bai Kamara, for this nice verse, and these were my questions.
Thank you. It's a
Thanks
pleasure.
a lot.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I hope I did okay. Thank you.